No, he actually switched it up here. Seismitoad is a Pokemon who is similar to Gastrodon. Its only weakness, since it's a water ground typing, is that grass. So teams who don't have grass type attacks, which could potentially play a factor against Andrew unless he has some option of a grass attack here, has no way to hit the Seismitoad super effectively. It's also very good against water types. And what do we see on Andrew's side? A Melodic there that likes to go for Scalds or Muddy Waters or any type of water attacks. The Seismitoad can take those pretty well. Of course, we can talk about the big guy down on the bottom in Toxtricity, who is the electric poison typing, which is one of my favorite unique typings that we have in the game. 4 times weak to ground, but really a pretty strong typing if you're able to avoid those earthquakes. A Pokemon that once you get it set up with a potential throat spray as its item, you can activate that, increase its special attack, and then some of your sound-based moves, thanks to that punk rock ability, will be doing a lot of damage. And I'm sure Bingjie has used that strategy to very much in many of his rounds this weekend to great effect. And Andrew definitely aware of what Toxtricity is able to do in a set like this, but Sylveon does not want to see Toxtricity.
No, probably not, but that's not what's going to be on the field. Sylveon and Tyranitar for Andrew, and Bingjie leading with the Seismitoad and the Chandelure.
Seismitoad seemed like it was a nice lead, a safe turn 1 lead in game 1 against some of those threats that Andrew has. Unfortunately for Bingjie, he did not bring them as this lead, but the Tyranitar is in a nice spot against the Chandelure. Chandelure as a ghost type Pokemon really threatened by those dark attacks potentially from a Tyranitar. So many times we see Tyranitar holding the item weakness policy, as so many Pokemon do in this format, where it'll boost your attack and special attack if you're hit super effectively. If this Seismitoad goes for a ground attack into Tyranitar, that would boost it up. But for now, we're going to see at minimum 1 Dynamax and maybe 2.
It's not really a surprise to see an early turn 1 Dynamax from any player in this particular format, but Seismitoad is surely one of those Pokemon we weren't expecting to see get a chance to use that Dynamax factor, but that's exactly what Bingjie was going for in this situation, and Andrew matching that. Once again, we have a double Dynamax turn 1.
Yeah, I think Tyranitar is a Pokemon that you just absolutely love Dynamaxing, because that additional HP it provides from Dynamax is able to let it tank so many more hits that it would not otherwise. So a potential Max Geyser or Max Quake shouldn't be a problem for this Tyranitar, and then he would be able to effectively use that weakness policy potentially.
Well, the Max Quake is actually going to find its mark on the Sylveon, not the Tyranitar, so no weakness policy procced in this particular turn from at least the Seismitoad, but the special defense is going to rise from both of these Pokemon, and that Seismitoad is going to also show off that it has that Life Orb. Now the Max Rockfall from the Tyranitar right back at Bingjie's Conkeldurr, not doing too much damage, but Sylveon going for a yawn. The Seismitoad's gonna get sleepy on this battlefield.
That's huge. That yawn is huge, because now after this next turn, Seismitoad, if he stays in, will be forced to be put to sleep and will not be able to use its 3rd turn of Dynamax there. Seismitoad actually targeting down the Sylveon slot very nicely. One, because there with the Max Quake could have had a Melodic switch in, so Max Geyser would not have done a lot of damage. And 2, he actually doesn't need Seismitoad to hit the Tyranitar, since Bingjie had Conkeldurr in the back, switching in on that turn, since the Chandelure was not providing much pressure on that turn. But he just wants to let him know Conkeldurr is there. He's not going to use it right now, but he should be aware. He should be afraid of it.
Another switch from Bingjie, this time showing off the Toxtricity. Sylveon going for Protect. Andrew double protecting both of their Pokemon with the Max Guard onto the Tyranitar as well. But this Max Ooze is going to go right through the Protect, right of that Sylveon, and do just a little bit of damage.
And that is huge, because Toxtricity on the switch in already gets a special attack increased by 1 stage. So if he has Throat Spray of his own, that special attack will get even stronger. This Sylveon is in a very difficult position against Toxtricity, typically trained faster in speed than Sylveon is, would hit it with a super effective Sludge Bomb or any poison attack it wants to go for. And now, unfortunately, this Seismitoad, though, since he's been put to sleep, he's going to be counting some Wooloo for the next couple of turns. So this Tyranitar is not threatened by the Seismitoad on this last turn of Dynamax here. So Tyranitar can potentially go for a Max Darkness or a Max Quake if he is running a ground attack. Of course, Toxtricity 4 times weak to ground here, so he does not want to take a Max Quake from Tyranitar if he has it.
Tyranitar and Sylveon both ended up protecting, and Andrew also going to be pivoting their Pokemon right beside Bingjie. So that Sylveon going back for the Gothitelle and Conkeldurr coming out for Bingjie. Toxtricity going for a protect though. I guess was potentially expecting some damage coming out from this Tyranitar, but Tyranitar going for the max darkness, and it's going to do a big chunk of damage.
This Conkeldurr has switched in twice, and he's already at 30% of his HP without ever actually staying on the field for a full turn. So, unfortunately for Bingjie, his Conkeldurr, which is his threat to Tyranitar, has not been able to get any attacks off in this set. Now, this Conkeldurr is not even able to switch out thanks to Gothitel's Shadow Tag ability, forcing your opponent's Pokemon to switch in unless they are Ghost types. Something that is a Ghost type in the back for Bingjie is the Chandelure, which does do pretty well against Gothitelle. But for now, it's going to have to wait in the wings on the bench for one of Bingjie's Pokemon to either be knocked out or for Gothitelle to switch out or be knocked out in this situation before Chandelure can even come in here and help. Conkeldurr could go for a Mach Punch since Trick Room is currently not up on the field right now. The Conkeldurr has to go for priority if he wants to, but he can't attack anyway this turn.
No, can't attack anyway, but Overdrive now from the Toxtricity. It's finally getting a chance to do something on the field with that special attack. And now the Rock Slide, though, is going to do enough damage to finish off the Conkeldurr. Oh, and the critical hit as well.
Yeah, it looked like that Rock Slide was just barely enough damage, as Conkeldurr does resist Rock, so a spread attack and Rock Slide and a resistance. You thought maybe Conkeldurr had a chance, but combination Fake Out and Rock Slide was enough to take it down. And this Tyranitar, really, it's been threatened by Seismitoad, been threatened by Conkeldurr, and look how many turns we're into this game, and it's unscathed at this point. The Toxtricity, though, is able to hit both of Andrew's Pokemon with that spread attack. He already has a special attack increase, so a potential Shadow Ball plus spread attack from Toxtricity would potentially knock out this Gothitelle. Oh, but there's a big reveal.
That is a big reveal. The Energy Ball going right into the Tyranitar Protect. Overdrive also going to be no damage onto the Tyranitar, but it does end up knocking out the Gothitelle, so Bingjie now can pivot Pokemon.
And now that, right now that Shadow Tag is gone, the Seismitoad could switch in if he wants. The Seismitoad would be able to kind of act as a sack in this situation because he is asleep. You might just want somebody else on the team to take the hit. This Intimidate not mattering to either of Bingjie's special attackers here. But with Toxtricity, with that special attack boost, it was enough for it to knock out the Gothitelle where it didn't need the coverage from Chandelure. So instead, Chandelure went for the Energy Ball. And now that Sand is over, Tyranitar has lost that one stage of increased special defense that he gets from the Sand. So now this is a regular Tyranitar who is weak to Energy Ball. He still has not had his weakness policy procced if that is the item that Tyranitar is holding. But he really doesn't want to take a super effective Energy Ball here.
Bingjie's done a great job of stalling out those turns of Sand in order to deal with this Tyranitar, but Andrew wants to protect the Sand, protect the Tyranitar, and send Sylveon out in its place. That is going to mean that Arcanine gets a chance to go for Flare Blitz here, right into the Toxtricity, so Toxtricity can't get another move off.
That is huge. That's critical because Overdrive would have knocked out the Sylveon and brought the Arcanine really, really low. This Energy Ball will take out Sylveon here, which is good for Bingjie, but the problem is his teammate in the back is still asleep, and I don't believe it actually, it has a somewhat of a chance to wake up, but it's not guaranteed at this point. So Bingjie really crossing his fingers here to see if the Seismitoad will wake up on this turn. Tyranitar does switch back in though, which will reactivate the Sand Stream ability, setting up Sand for the next 5 turns. And we don't know what the Chandelure's item is. You can run Focus Sash, you can run Choice Scarf, you can run a lot of different things. Cassib Berry potentially on Chandelure. If it is Choice Scarf, it would be Choice Locked into Energy Ball, meaning it would have no way of hitting the Arcanine, and even with the Snarl, that's going to be even less damage.
Yeah, the Snarl very important for Andrew in order to decrease the special attack from both of these Pokemon. Unfortunately, Seismitoad's going to take a turn of sleep as Chandelure goes for the Shadow Ball right into Andrew's Arcanine. Doesn't do too much damage. It's time for Tyranitar to try to get the Rock Slide off, but there's a miss. And it's an important miss. It's an important miss as the Chandelure is the one that gets the miss.
Yeah, you'd much rather hit the Chandelure with the Rock Slide, as he's the one who has Energy Ball. And by switching to Shadow Ball, that reveals that this Chandelure is not Choice Scarf, does have another type of item here that lets him switch up his attacks. Of course, this Tyranitar can take an Energy Ball, most likely now, since this Snarl is putting Chandelure at -2 special attack. But still, that Rock Slide would have done so much damage to Chandelure.
Absolutely, but the Snarl is still doing chip damage, so that Rock Slide might just be within knockout distance. But Chandelure is going for the Energy Ball, is going to try to shoot its shot, and unfortunately, that's not going to be nearly enough, and it's going to pop that weakness policy.
It's almost like he gave Tyranitar a helping hand there by activating the weakness policy.
Tyranitar goes for the Rock Slide, but a double miss.
That's 3 out of 4 Rock Slides there that he has missed.
No way.
That's so unfortunate. As a player, Andrew has to find a way to keep his mentality up, because sometimes you get in your own way when you miss those Rock Slides. This game is not over, and Tyranitar is still in a really good spot. If he can actually land these Rock Slides and hit the Chandelure, he's not threatened by Energy Ball anymore, since this Chandelure is going to continue to get its special attack drop. The only thing that would threaten it would be a critical hit through all of these Snarls, but even with that, the sand is back up to help him with that special defense stat. So this Tyranitar, do not threat, just connect on it and you'll be all right.
Oh, well, another Snarl. Makes sense for the Arcanine to continue to go for the special attack drops and the chip damage, but it's about time that Seismitoad wakes up, and unfortunately it's not going to. Another Energy Ball, because this Tyranitar has to go, and it's still going to just chip away. Tyranitar doesn't want to go for the Rock Slide this time, just goes for the Crunch, and Seismitoad not going to be able to do too much after those first couple turns of Dynamax.
Seismitoad doesn't even know what happens. He didn't even wake up at any point in that match to see himself get knocked out from the Crunch. And now, with Arcanine having Snarl, he doesn't have to use any other attacks, because that will be super effective and single target now into the Chandelure. So combination of Crunch and Snarl is going to take this game for Andrew.
Absolutely. The special attack drops, just another animation that we've got to wait for, as this Energy Ball is going to try to chip away again, and then there's no critical hit there. Tyranitar just goes for the Crunch, and Andrew is going to take this game 1.
That was really well played by Andrew there, knowing that he had to play around the Chandelure in the beginning, who potentially had Energy Ball, and that is what he revealed there. And keeping his composure after missing 3 out of 4 Rock Slides. So he missed 75% of his Rock Slides on a 90% accurate move, so that can be really damaging to your psyche if you're in a close game. But he was in such a positive position, and luckily for him, he had the Arcanine on his side, who had Snarl, which hits Chandelure super effectively. I want to see how Bingjie is going to adjust in this game, because it seemed like Seismitoad might have been a difficult Pokemon to Dynamax on that first turn, because he got hit by the Yawn from Sylveon. So it seemed like Andrew just had some really nice tech all around in that match. The Yawn on the Sylveon, the Snarl on Arcanine. There seemed like he had some ways around it, and the big threat to his team with the Toxtricity was not able to really start steamrolling in that matchup. And that's Andrew's key to success in game 2, is he's also going to keep that Toxtricity from getting really set up.
I think that something that Andrew did really, really well is just protect the Tyranitar. Like we already mentioned, how you get the special defense boost in the sand. And once the sand ended, that Tyranitar was quickly put back into its Pokeball and made sure that it was going to be protected, so that it could come back out safely with that Sandstream ability. Yeah,
I feel like Tyranitar feels not at 100% when he doesn't have the sand up. Like he feels kind of threatened there, like vulnerable without the sand boost. So he's gonna switch out whenever he can to reset up those sand for those 5 turns. And I think one other thing that he did really well with it while Tyranitar was Dynamax was when he went for the Max Quake as he yawned with Sylveon. That guaranteed that the Seismitoad was not going to hit the Tyranitar for a lot of damage with that the potential Dynamax attack, and then it was going to be forced to sleep. So a very smart use of Max Quake there. Usually you see Dynamax using in aggressive senses and using it for offense or lowering your opponent's stat, but some of the best Dynamax turns are the ones that are actually defensive, and that it worked out well for that Tyranitar, because he needed to hang on to every HP point he had.
I think that actually speaks to both players, how they played with the Dynamax. They ended up utilizing those secondary effects so well. We also were able to complement Bingjie's utilization of the Max Ooze to increase the special special attack for the Toxtricity that ended up getting switched in, and I thought that was a really heads-up play from Bingjie. So I think that Bingjie's game plan doesn't actually have to change too much. It's maybe about mitigating the effectiveness of the Sylveon, and especially as a lead for Andrew, I think that's something that Bingjie has answers to on the team.
That's something that's really cool about Dynamax, how you are able to boost your teammate on the switch in. So it's like they're really they're coming up with a big advantage when they're just entering the field. And this Toxtricity, who does hit the Sylveon super effectively with poison attacks and a +1 overdrive as a spread attack into both of his opponent's Pokemon, like you can see how important it is to get that Toxtricity rolling in a set. And sometimes, like, he does have Gothitelle, which is an answer, who potentially has a psychic attack into Toxtricity. I don't know how this Gothitelle is trained for it to be able to knock it out in one hit, but if you can get a couple of special attack increases on Toxtricity, or even just the one special attack increase with those sound-based moves, he's ready to. He likes being on that big stage that he is here in Collinsville and performing for everybody.
I don't know how important the Arcanine was, because usually when you bring Arcanine as a supporter, you're really relying on that Intimidate ability in order to drop the attack stat of the opposing Pokemon.
Attackers
yeah, Bingjie has a lot of special attackers. I mean, most notably, the strong attacker on the team is going to be that Conkeldurr, which tends to not flourish in this particular environment, except against maybe the Tyranitar. So I think that maybe for Andrew, we might not really see the Arcanine as much.
And the Tyranitar covers Chandelure the same way as Arcanine Snarls were, right? Because Tyranitar has Crunch. So
but the Snarls were important, you're right.
Right, but if he does have Crunch, he doesn't have to worry about doing 20% at a time when he can just take the full knockout onto the Chandelure from Crunch.
Ooh, I love this switch up, though. Andrew's going for something really spicy. He has that Gothitelle out on the floor with the Durant, and Bingjie also switching things up. Grimmsnarl and Seismitoad. The Grimmsnarl going to help out a lot with that Seismitoad.
This is a nice adjustment for Andrew here. Sometimes when you win game one and you feel strongly about it, you go with the same plan. But Andrew, understanding that Bingjie wanted to switch it up, so he adapted and brought Durant here. Durant, being a Steel-type Pokemon, threatens this Grimmsnarl heavily. So if Grimmsnarl stayed in, which it did here, it's going to get one potential chance to use a Prankster status move and then maybe get knocked out from a Max Steel Spike.
Well, there is also fake out potential from that Gothitelle. We saw it go for the fake out when it was in that turn 1 for game 1. But Durant going to get the Dynamax factor, and it's also time for Bingjie to match that. Let's see if it's going to be the Seismitoad again.
It should be the Seismitoad, and
Absolutely.
This time Seismitoad is not worried about a yawn since Sylveon is not on the field.
Yeah.
So I think Bingjie feels like he can use these 3 turns of Dynamax more effectively because he won't be put to sleep.
Won't be put to sleep. Can't get faked out either because it is in that Dynamax form. So the Gothitelle going for the fake out on the Grimmsnarl. Good call there. So Grimmsnarl not going to be able to get a move. And this Max Steel Spike going right into the Grimmsnarl as well is going to get enough for the knockout with that hustle ability.
And because he got fake out of there, he was not able to set up a Reflect or a Thunder Wave or anything that Grimmsnarls like to do. So that was a perfect turn out of Andrew on that on there. Of course, he'll take some retaliation from this Seismitoad when he hits this Max Geyser. But if you get rid of Grimmsnarl before it can do anything annoying to your Pokemon, that's always a win.
Ooh, Durant does get a chance to hang on, so it will be able to go for another move next time. But the Seismitoad packs a lot of damage, especially with that Life Orb.
And if he Swift Swim, which is very common on Seismitoad to counter against other rain teams as a water-type Pokemon, or he will actually have just doubled his speed. Therefore, this Seismitoad is now faster than Durant in the rain, and Durant it would obviously not endure another attack from the Seismitoad. So does Durant have some type of non-attack on his move slot that he can use as a max guard in this situation? Or is he just going to have to either take this knockout or try to switch around or something? That Max Geyser, although it was very strong damage on turn 1, if he Swift Swim, this does help him out even more in the following turns.
Well, it is going to be probably Swift Swim because Max Geyser's moving first. But this time it's targeting down the Gothitelle and it still hangs on. So that means that, wow, Durant going for the Max Flutterby here. right into the Seismitoad. That does a sizable chunk of damage.
And it's going to lower the special attack, but it's not going to get rid of the rain. So both of Andrew's Pokemon are really low right now. So even with that special attack drop, it'd still be enough for a knockout.
I like
Drain Punch knocked out. What?
Yeah, I really like that Bingjie ended up targeting down the Gothitelle, because that Shadow Tag is definitely something that Bingjie doesn't want to have to play around. And now they have free range to pivot Pokemon and bring in something that's in the back. And
it's tough for Durant in this situation, because if he wanted to get rid of the rain, he'd have to use Max Rockfall potentially, which is a very, commonly Durants do use a rock attack to set to change the weather. But both Conkeldurr and Seismitoad really don't care about Max Rockfall, so you wouldn't have been doing it for damage purposes. You would have done it just to switch up the weather, and then the following turn, as we saw, he double targeted Gothitelle. Durant is still kicking around here. He'd be available and faster than the Seismitoad, but since the rain is still up, Seismitoad's the fastest Pokemon on the field currently. And he has a poison attack that we saw in game 1 that can go into the Sylveon.
Yeah, that Sylveon is definitely not sitting safe, but that is the Pokemon that Andrew decides is going to be the right one for the job, especially when we just saw that Gothitelle get knocked out.
And you wonder how this Conkeldurr can, if he went for Mach Punch into the Durant. I'm not sure if it would knock out since he is Dynamaxed, but it could have been close potentially. We're not even going to see that scenario because Durant is down.
Yeah, Durant's going to get knocked out by that Max Quake from that super fast Seismitoad. And I think actually, I love the use of the Max Quake there, because there's, again, is a perfect example of utilizing secondary effects to such a great fruition. That special defense boost for both the Conkeldurr as well as the Seismitoad is going to help against the Sylveon, but not so much for the Seismitoad.
Yeah, and Sylveon is going to take it down there. We'll see at the end of this animation if he is Throat Spray, which is a common item on Sylveon. He is not, so he's holding a different item there, so it's not going to be able to increase his special attack. That Ice Punch had a chance to freeze there, but it was also the best attack he could have done, since the Conkeldurr's fighting attacks would be resisted there. Andrew actually did not bring Tyranitar here in this matchup, and that might have been why he never tried to reset up the sand, because he didn't have that option, because Tyranitar didn't come in this game. Arcanine in this situation, he can try to Snarl to counteract the Toxtricity, but Toxtricity will go for a potential super effective poison attack into this Sylveon, or those spread attacks with the overdrives. That electric attack that we saw worked so well for him worked really well when Toxtricity was actually on the field in game 1. He didn't win it, but this Toxtricity is definitely the way he can try to win this game.
Well, Toxtricity going to get protected here, so Bingjie playing it a little bit safe, as is Andrew going for the Protect. So where is this Arcanine going to do? Going to go for the Snarl, but now what is the Conkeldurr going to do?
It's got to be maybe a Drain Punch just to recover his HP a little more, so he lives a Hyper Voice in the following turns. I think that might be the best.
Oh.
Or this Rock Slide super effective if it hits.
Yeah, it looks like it is going to connect with the Arcanine, so that's going to do a decent chunk of damage, maybe about a third of its HP. This is definitely coming down to the wire. This is such a close game between these two players.
It's not doing as much damage as Bingjie would like, because the Conkeldurr was intimidated by the Arcanine, so that is -1 damage. Now it's going to do no damage here also, since he protected, and we also haven't seen its item yet, so it could have a Figgy Berry.
Sludge Bomb into the Sylveon is enough to get the knockout, so Sylveon not going to be able to get a second attack off. And the Rock Slide, unfortunately, going to end up missing the Arcanine because of the Protect, but the rain has now stopped. The battlefield dimensions are back to normal, and it is a 2v1. And the Bingjie's totally fine with that Rock Slide going into Protect, because he got rid of Sylveon here. It's Arcanine versus 2 Pokemon. Every turn, Arcanine wants to go for a Snarl that leaves himself wide open to super effective Rock Slide damage. And then if he wants to go for a Flare Blitz into the Conkeldurr, then he's going to take single target overdrive damage from Toxtricity, who is a really strong special attacker, even with the Snarl decrease. So this Arcanine's in a really precarious situation. Flare Blitz just trying to chip away, but Sludge Bomb going to be enough to get the knockout. Now it's going to be tied up here. Bingjie gets 1 game and Andrew has 1.
Bingjie made a really strong adjustment there.
Super strong.
With the Seismitoad. Also fortunate that Andrew did not lead Sylveon, obviously, is that way he wasn't put to sleep. But the fact that Seismitoad does have Swift Swim and he's able to set up his own rain without a teammate, say a Pelipper, to set up the rain for him, or a prankster Pokemon that would use Rain Dance. He's self-sufficient enough as a Dynamax Pokemon to cause a lot of havoc with Max Quake or Max Geyser, and then also make himself really fast the following turns after rain is set up. And that's the one thing that makes Durant work well, is that he's faster than so many other things in the format. And when you give yourself Swift Swim, this Durant is not able to endure those attacks, especially in the rain. So Andrew is going to have to need an adjustment in this set of what is his answer against Seismitoad, as we've now seen 2 matches. None of his Pokemon have grass attacks, and that is Seismitoad's only weakness. So the Yawn seemed to be the best bet. So does Bingjie adjust with that and have Toxtricity as an option next to Seismitoad to say, if you want to Yawn my Dynamax Pokemon, you're going to have to take this Sludge Bomb with your Sylveon, which I don't know if you can. That's what's so interesting with this match, and I love that we ended up having a game 3 in this spot, because I did feel like this matchup was closer than the first game really showed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The first game was so much closer than what was actually the score on the screen. And this series particularly is interesting because, you know, we talked about the first top 8 match and how both teams had multiple different ways that they could be run, but I feel like these 2 teams as well, they're very sneaky in showing the flexibility that they have.
Absolutely. It seems like there's not one dedicated avenue or option that the teams always have to go for. I think something that Andrew might want to go back to is his Tyranitar lead or Tyranitar mode, if you want to go for it. And the Durant did work out. It was pretty nice, as it does a lot of damage with that max steel spike, and especially with the hustle and the life orb boost and everything. But if Durant's not able to be the first thing that attacks, usually it doesn't live many attacks after that. So
yeah, it's usually pretty frail.
But especially Bingjie's team, with those 6 Pokemon, it's not like he has to lead the same thing every time. It seems like all 6 of those Pokemon are viable lead options for him. So he does have a big mind game advantage there, because Andrew was not able to know who Bingjie's top 2 are.
Third game. It's tied up right now. Bingjie and Andrew both have a game apiece, and it's finally time to find out what these leads are going to be. Gothitelle and Durant again for Andrew, and Bingjie again switching things up with the Chandelure and the Conkeldurr to start. 3
different games from Bingjie with 3 different leads. I love the adaptation from him in this set. Chandelure is doing really well in this situation against Gothitelle. Obviously, Bingjie's Pokemon cannot switch out, as Gothitelle is still on the field, so that Shadow Tag ability is in effect currently. But if Gothitelle decides to switch out because it doesn't want to eat a Shadow Ball from Chandelure, and I wouldn't blame him, honestly, for trying to switch out as Gothitelle here, it would reopen them for switching. But instead, this Heat Wave will still do some solid damage to it. And no Fake Out, actually, from Gothitelle. So did he go for Trick Room? No,
Gothitelle actually went for Psychic. Yeah, just wants to try to get off some damage, and it will be going right into the Chandelure. That critical hit actually taking it down to like about half health. I think that's really important, because that Chandelure might be within a knockout range of something coming in the back.
That was quite the brave turn out of Andrew. Not Dynamaxing his Durant, which is pretty much exclusionary. When you see Durant on turn 1, it just Dynamaxes. So instead, he does have Protect, so he does have the option to max guard when he is Dynamax. So that is a big reveal for Bingjie to know he has to worry about a potential max guard. And then not going for something that Chandelure might also be holding, and Chandelure has the imprison tech a lot of times. Just going for a Psychic against a Ghost type Pokemon that's really threatens you very hard is a pretty brave or pretty bold move from the Gothitelle, and he's still not going to switch out, because the utility Shadow Tag provides is so much stronger than any of the damage that the Psychic can do from Gothitelle.
And also in this situation, Andrew really wants to try to target down both the Chandelure and this Conkeldurr. This Conkeldurr is going to threaten so much damage, as is that Chandelure. And yeah, you're right, that Chandelure going to get knocked out from the Max Quake coming in from the Durant. Durant wants to get as much value as possible before a potential Seismitoad comes in the back.
And Psychic potentially into this Conkeldurr would be super effective damage too. So
there it is.
Yeah, Gothitelle is doing a lot of offensive pressure with 2 Psychics.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of times you see the Gothitelle kind of act as more of a supportive Pokemon, and the fact that it's able to do so much damage in the face of these Pokemon from Bingjie is actually very impressive.
The Psychic the previous turn was great from the Gothitelle because, one, it broke a potential Focus Sash on Chandelure. We don't know if it was holding that item, but if it was holding Focus Sash, that Max Quake would not have knocked out. So that's why he needed those 2 attacks, which was perfect. And Durant from Max Quake has increased both the Gothitelle and the Durant special defense by 1 stage. Gothitelle already has a ludicrously high special defense stat, so that only helps it even more against this Seismitoad who has those special attacking ground and water type attacks here. So Durant is on his 2nd turn of Dynamax, but this is going to be Seismitoad's 1st turn of Dynamax, so he will have that potential 1 additional turn of Dynamax in a couple of turns here for an advantage, but let's see if Seismitoad even lasts long enough to get to that point.
It's going to have to be a similar game plan to before, where maybe going for the Swift Swim, but instead actually going for the Max Guard, which is going to eat that Max Flutterby from the Durant. So that's a great turn of stall from Bingjie, but Gothitelle gets a chance to go for yet another Psychic, and that brings it so low. Conkeldurr, though, gets to go for the Ice Punch, and I think is hoping for at least some knockout or of the freeze.
Wow, they both really low, that Gothitelle and the Conkeldurr. It seemed like the first Psychic didn't do 50% to the Conkeldurr, so maybe Andrew was hoping for some more damage on that one, but it was not enough, and now Gothitelle goes down. Yeah,
Gothitelle going to get knocked out to the Mach Punch coming in from Bingjie's Conkeldurr, but the Max Flutterby is finally going to connect into the Seismitoad and does so much damage. But again, like we saw in that original calculation in Game 2, it's not enough.
And obviously lowering the special attack, which is huge because now the Durant is effectively like +2 special defense since it's +1 and -1 if you want to add it up that way. Doesn't exactly add up that way, but you can kind of look at it that. And look how much better. That was significantly better taken from the Durant this time around compared to Game 2.
Absolutely. The special defense boost, the special attack drops really playing in Andrew's favor to keep that Durant alive and kicking. It's definitely going to be able to get off another attack.
Oh, if he had Tyranitar here, he would actually have been able to switch it out or to bring it in and reset the sand. So that might be an indication that Andrew yet again didn't bring Tyranitar potentially, as Sylveon is here. Sylveon doesn't mind seeing a Conkeldurr and a low health Seismitoad, as that spread Hyper Voice from Sylveon would potentially get a double knockout here. And Durant does have Protect, so he could try to go for a normal Protect on this turn and endure this Max Geyser on Seismitoad's final turn of Dynamax. And Sylveon, we saw it yawn in Game 1. Can it go for the same thing and put that Seismitoad back to sleep? Because that's the game that Andrew won, was when Seismitoad was asleep, and that's might be a potential win condition for him.
We'll have to find out. Durant doesn't want to stay, though, especially when it's going to be down in its normal form. But there's the Tyranitar.
There it is.
It's going to reset the sand. This was incredibly intelligent from Andrew, because now this Seismitoad from Bingjie can't take advantage of the Swift Swim ability that it has. Conkeldurr also making a swap out, doesn't want to see this Sylveon, but Toxtricity absolutely does. Max Geyser from the Seismitoad will be able to connect with this Tyranitar, though, so getting it on the switch in is going to proc that weakness policy that we saw from Game 1.
And that Tyranitar switch-in actually baited Toxtricity to come in this slot because it was Sylveon at that point. So Toxtricity wanted to come in to try to threaten that Sylveon. So a really smart call, saving that Tyranitar for that switch into the Durant slot, excuse me.
Yeah, that was a really heads-up play by Andrew, and that Hyper Voice just going to get some chip damage onto the Toxtricity, but more importantly, getting the knockout onto the Seismitoad. Now, Bingjie down to their last 2 Pokemon. It's going to be Toxtricity and that Conkeldurr, whereas Andrew still has that Durant in the back.
And look how low health this Conkeldurr is. He can go for a Mach Punch, and by Tyranitar having around 40% of his HP, it looks like, that Mach Punch probably does knock out, since it is 4 times super effective and Conkeldurr is so strong. But for him knocking out the Tyranitar, it's going to be at the cost of this Conkeldurr going down here. The Quick Attack, though, stops Mach Punch!
Quick Attack! It is going to go first. That's going to be the Conkeldurr going down, and Andrew now has to just deal with this Toxtricity. Sludge Bomb, though, into the Sylveon.
Not enough.
Not enough. So Tyranitar gets a chance to go for the crunch and get some damage.
That's a +2 crunch.
That is a +2 crunch, and Andrew's going to take the set.
Wow, beautifully played last couple of turns from Andrew in that situation.